All right. Ciao a tutti, everyone. Welcome back to the Checkered Chat podcast. We are your hosts, Daniel,
Caleb.
and we're going to talk about the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix from Imola this past weekend. Apologies, we could not find the time to record an episode for the Miami Grand Prix, but honestly, not too much craziness happened that week, so there really wasn't too much to talk about to begin with. So
Nah, just Oscar dominance in Miami.
yeah. So we'll go ahead, kick off the episode starting with qualifying, where most of the action happened in Q1. First crash of the day being Yuki's crash.
Yeah, really big roll from Yuki. He went up into the barriers and gave the fans a little bit of a show. He was pretty close to them.
Right. The amount of times he flipped and just skidding along the barricade itself was insane. He probably would be dead if he didn't have the halo on the car.
I mean, that's a lot of crashes. Like I'd put it just below Joe's crash at Silverstone, because that was he flipped like 5-6 times when that happened,
and skid a lot further as well.
And then he
flipped over the tires, hit the fence, and then
fence.
flipped back into the tires. So it's
and then George got out the car and started sprinting towards Joe because he was totally going to do something.
And I mean, at least Yuki like jumped out of it like nothing happened. You know, maybe his build kind of helped with him staying safe because he's such a small man. But
yeah, honestly, big crash is kind of a theme of the week with IndyCar qualifying for the Indy 500 going on. Because
I want to say, I don't remember if it was McLaughlin's crash. I think McLaughlin's was in practice.
Herta had a
crashed like
Herta had a really bad crash.
Not even 10 minutes after Yuki's crash.
Yeah.
And then later in qualifying, Colapinto also crashed.
He pulled a Perez. He crashed to end the session so he could get into Q2. Even if he might not drive in Q2, he pulled a Perez to.
If it works, it works.
To secure his qualifying position. He learned from Perez's Monaco antics.
Yep. I mean, he ultimately also got a one place starting penalty.
Yeah.
So he dropped down that one spot, but I don't know.
I think maybe just securing a better first qualifying session than doing just to say he can.
He still got sunned by Pierre.
I mean, just about anybody who's in the second car at Alpine that's gonna happen to right now. Colapinto's good, but he's still
he's a rookie.
He's very inexperienced. Yeah.
Story of qualifying would definitely be the Astons, especially in Q2. They slapped on the mediums instead of softs for their final run, end up demoting both the Ferraris to go into Q2, to go into Q3, which is insane.
So I think the situation there was a lot of people were running scrub softs, and then the Astons had the fresher mediums ended up being quicker than the scrub softs because those mediums were the soft compound last year.
Yes.
So they're still a very fast tire. But I guess I don't know if Alpine had like some data from practice or whatever and saw there was some good pace with the mediums. Because even though the mediums had very good pace, not a lot of people were using them because
it's qualifying.
Yeah,
unless it's a sprint qualifying and you're forced to use medium for the first two parts of the sprint qualifying, like you're going to use the soft.
Yeah,
unless like it's obvious that the softs can't hold.
Yeah, they have a lot less medium tires in their allocation in general. So they generally want to preserve those because they're more versatile for the race. But Aston, like we said, they saw great success putting them on, and then even I believe Mercedes
George fitted mediums to leapfrog Lando from fourth to third. Honestly, after seeing Aston do that in Q2, I'm surprised. There was one other car that slapped on mediums in Q3. I don't remember, but I'm surprised only 2 of the 10 did that. I mean, if all the other, I mean, obviously George was still out qualified by Oscar and Max, so it's not like the softs clearly weren't the right tire to run. But
Yeah.
if the driver might have been more comfortable in the or confident in the mediums, it would have been, I think, smart to try. You only would put on 3 laps onto the medium, and
Yeah.
you could just use it in the race, and it'll just be 3 laps old.
I think the putting on the mediums was kind of just a way, like, because I mean McLaren and Verstappen, they ran softs the whole way. And so I think that was just a way for teams who are maybe just generally not as quick to sort of gain a little bit of time.
Now that I think about it, I think George had a comfortable gap between 4th and 5th with the softs.
Uh-huh.
So, like, you throw on the mediums, you don't improve to 3rd. No one behind was going to catch up to you anyway. You slap on the mediums, you end up gaining time. Then it worked out. So it probably was a win-win regardless for Mercedes. So that's probably why the other teams didn't do it. Now that I think about it,
Yeah, because I mean the 5th place in qualifying was Alonso, and the Aston's not going to catch a Mercedes on softs.
yeah, no.
So he would have had to have another pair of mediums ready, which they didn't want to use because they needed to save them for the race, obviously.
And they can't reuse the mediums they used from Q2 because they would be 5 laps old by the time their fast lap starts. So
So I mean,
it played out for them in Q2, played out for George in Q3.
yeah. So good move by the Astons in qualifying, just for them to do absolutely nothing in the race. Unfortunately for them,
they did stuff in the race, choked
no
with assorted strategy choices, and
Alonso's brakes caught on fire.
that was momentary, like moment.
Yeah,
by the time he left the pit, it was fine.
But Coulthard was cracking some bangers on the broadcast. He's like, man, you can see the brake get hot, and I'm not about to speak in a Scottish accent, but to transition into the race, biggest moment of the race probably was lap 1, turn 1, with
Max won it on that.
Max just asserting himself.
Yeah,
turn 1.
I watched the replays back on that move a little bit today. He kind of caught Oscar sleeping. Like it didn't really look like Oscar was lining himself up to be defensive. I think he thought, since he had George behind him, because before the pass was made, the order was Oscar, George, Max, because George had gotten a little bit ahead of Max.
George had a really good start.
Yeah, he had a fantastic start.
Like if he, like, when you go back on the broadcast, they showed George was like frustrated because he's like, what is Piastri doing? Like, why is he so slow off the start? And so, like, George kind of felt like he got held back a little bit. He could have made a move if Piastri wasn't so bad off the start that time. And so I think it's a mix of both. I think maybe I don't think they're ever really expecting a turn 1 move off the start, but I mean, like, Max he's known for that.
Yeah,
like he's gonna do it when he can, and then also just not a good enough start from Piastri. So those two elements together, and you get that brilliant overtake from Max off the first turn.
Right, and like I said, Max won the race after that that move. If the VSC and the SC that happened in the race that we'll get to in a minute didn't happen, he would have finished probably a minute ahead of, like, dude was gone.
Yeah,
before the VSC, I think he was like in the 20 to 30 second range ahead of Oscar, which is nuts.
Yeah, and the big thing about this race was only one DRS zone.
Yep.
So dirty air played a big factor, and Max just being at the front with all that clean air to himself,
he was able to disappear.
Yeah, he was really comfortable.
Whatever upgrades that Red Bull brought this week, because they did bring upgrades, clearly is working good. I don't think it would be absurd to say that the Red Bull genuinely was the fastest car this past weekend, especially with Max in the cockpit. I say that, and then Yuki still I mean, he started P20 because of his crash, but he made it up to
He made it to
P10 as
P10.
well.
Yeah.
He had to fight for it a lot harder than Max had to fight for his win, but um, it did look like Oscar and Lando, like something was off this week. It just didn't seem like they were extracting the performance out of the car as well as they usually do. Because I mean, like Oscar also had clean air for a good portion of the race and couldn't make wind of on Max before Oscar eventually pit. Lando didn't make a lot of progress either in clean air.
Yeah, he had a lot of trouble getting around George, didn't he?
Yes, and then at one point where he hadn't pit yet. It was after all the two stoppers made their first pit stop. Lando and Max were going long, and this was right before the VSC VSC. Like he had clean air, and he would it looked I think he would like make a tenth up and then lose a tenth. So it's not like he wasn't making a lot of progress while he had clean air, and then obviously he pit one lap too early.
Yeah, and then
Just unlucky there. It's dude, Hannah and the Red Bull strategists,
well,
voodoo magic.
I see that it's really just I mean
It's luck.
they were fortunate,
Yeah,
like
it's
because Lando was trying the undercut, and I mean luckily Max didn't even have to respond because he
right
had the
because he
safety
got
car.
the VSC. It is crazy because it's almost like not literally every time, but a lot of times where Max is extending his first stint, it seems like there's almost always a VSC or a safety car or a red flag that appears out of nowhere. But I think Hannah and the strategy team for Red Bull are very good at their jobs and are able to roll that dice very often and be successful.
Yeah, I mean Max definitely plays a role in that because he's I mean
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's got to be able to extend for that to work.
yeah,
So
and then so the VSC and the safety car, the cars came to a stop in very similar positions.
yeah, on the same straight, just
Except
on two ends of the straight.
yeah. Antonelli was a lot further down the straight, and so we were kind of discussing, why the difference between the VSC the first time and the safety car for Antonelli, and
We'll put up a very quality drawn graphic here.
yeah, when I was watching the race, I had to I made a graphic of why I thought they opted for the full safety car. Um, whenever they pulled Ocon's car off the track, we have no idea where it went.
Yeah, they pulled it behind the little wall there on the inside of the turn, and then by time they're showing Kimmy's car parked, the car's gone.
Like so the only explanation that I can come up with is that wall opens up, yeah, and they slotted him in there, and I mean it was safe enough for a VSC there because
he was right next.
It's close enough to where they don't have very far to go.
There was almost no threat of them getting hurt, and yet a marshal still got ran over by the car that they were pushing.
Yeah, his leg did get stuck under the car.
So that does explain the difference in safety car versus virtual safety car deployment for being on the same straight.
Yeah, and because for Antonelli's
they had to put it on a tractor.
They had to bring the heavy machinery out, and there's been controversy enough with the tractors being on track and driver safety and whatnot. So better safe than sorry. Full safety car there. But if you really want to get sort of
put our tinfoil
hats on, be conspiracy theorists, the FIA may just wanted to have everybody bunch back up for the end of the race. So, that's topic for discussion. You never know. FIA are not immune to putting their hands into the races.
Yes. And even if they wanted to do that to bunch them up, Max being goated at safety car restarts disappeared again immediately. So, it wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah, because the safety car restart, it's not just to bunch the front of the pack up, because they now have to worry about everybody behind them too.
Right, and because also you have to allow unlapped cars to get unlapped because Behrman was in between Max and Oscar.
Oh yeah.
So they had to let Ollie go by, and then after that, it was once the safety car went in, the race goes green whenever Max decides it to go green, or the leader, and it was in this case Max, but it's he disappeared. So then obviously all the attentions turned to the McLarens, who were 2-3. Lando on not brand new but newer hards, and Oscar on even newer hards than that because he pit under the safety car as well. So once he am I getting that wrong?
I don't, because did was it Oscar ahead of Lando after the safety car? Yes. Do we have to take a little intermission to get our facts straight?
Okay, Lando pit in the safety car.
Yes.
So Oscar had
track position.
the old new tires, and Lando had the brand new hard tires. So that's why. Jesus, it's been a long day. Okay, that's why a lot of people were saying, like, maybe it would have been smart to let Lando by to challenge Max, because Max dropped a 3-second gap on Oscar, like within a lap. Like or a lap or two, he was gone.
Yeah.
I think just Oscar and McLaren kind of dropped the ball with going for the 2-stop instead of the 1. I think a lot of teams panicked when they saw the DEG kind of. It seemed extreme at first, and then it kind of leveled out, and then everyone who stayed out was able to capitalize on the tires being good, the medium tires in the first stint.
I want to say I think everybody. I'm not sure anybody one-stopped the whole race, because let's see. Albon 2, Bordello 3, 2, 2.
Well, it was the one-stoppers and the two-stoppers before the safety car.
I think did Yuki one-stop this race? Yuki one-stopped. Okay, that's why he was P10.
Yeah, that's why he made up so much.
Yeah, so shout out Yuki Tsunoda going one-stop when like everybody else went 2. That's a huge reason why he was able to go P10. So really underrated drive, to be honest.
Extremely underrated drive. So towards the end, the McLarens were on 2 different tire strategies at that point. If it was the end of the season, where the constructors would be on the line and the drivers was still also on the line, I could see team orders to let them switch. Would kind of make sense, because you wouldn't want Max to win, and if the driver behind has the better tires, he has the better chance than the driver in front. But being round 7, it seems perfectly normal to just let them race and figure it out themselves.
And it's better to watch. It'd be so terrible for them to start right now and say, "Oh, Oscar has the championship lead. We need to prioritize him." Like I want to say
Lando's 13 points behind. Yeah, that is less than a 3rd place finish deficit.
Yeah, there's zero reason to start. I don't
want to say but like if Oscar drops into a non-scoring position and Lando just puts it in 3rd, he's 2 points ahead. So like it's not like it's a multi-win gap. It's not like the gap between Max and everybody else last season after Miami. Like it's less than a 1-win gap. So there's no reason to be doing team orders right now to prioritize one. Yeah. So as much as I want to have faith in Lando, he was on brand new hards, but so was Max. And Max had, at that point, like I said, already made a 2.5-3-second gap on Oscar. He wasn't catching him. Mm-hmm. He was gone. So at that point, you just have to let him race for their podium positions. I mean, they still, they're still 1-2 in the championship. Despite I think everyone assuming it's going to be Oscar now, I think it's going to be this close the whole season, unless just Lando drops off the face of the earth, or if Oscar goes through just a bad race stint. It's going to be this close, I think, the whole way.
Yeah. I mean, Max is going to be right there with him probably the whole season too. And I think that's where some of the worries come in about, whether or not to do team orders, because it's a case of whether, okay, so you have the Constructors Championship. That's pretty firmly not. They're
like doubled the score of Mercedes.
Yeah, we're not even halfway through the season yet, so I'm not gonna say that they have it firmly in their grasp, but it's theirs as long as they don't mess it up.
Yeah.
But then it becomes a question of, is the constructors itself enough, or do you also need to have a McLaren driver be the driver championship? Yep. Because the situation last year, McLaren were constructors, but they got beat out by Max Verstappen for the drivers. So maybe that's something you think about if you're McLaren. Do you want to really show like you're without a doubt the best team on the grid with both championships?
And you definitely do. You want to win both. But like we were saying, round 7 is not the time to commit to choosing one.
Neither driver has earned the right to
firmly claim their head-to-heads. It's just it's Oscar over Lando 4-3 in Grand Prix and in Grand Prix qualifying. It's 2-0 Oscar in sprint qualifying and in sprint results, but sprints don't give you as significant amount of points as Grand Prix. So they're still even, if you could say even, because it's been an odd number amount of races, but it's, I wouldn't even say assign a clear championship winner after the summer break, because that still might be too early. You really, if they're neck and neck the whole season and Max is neck and neck with them as well, I don't think you can.
No, yeah, because if the gap is going to stay this tight, then just let it ride to the end.
Yeah, and at that point, it's let the best racer win.
Yeah, let the best driver.
And if it ends up being Max at the end of the season, it ends up being Max. You still had the best team. If Max still wins by a few points, it'll be Vettel in 2010 all over again, where he was third in the constructors, third or fourth on the last race, and ended up winning the championship. It's just gonna be the best driver won.
Yeah.
So I think if it's that way, it'll be one of the best seasons to watch in a while.
Yeah, it's always more fun when you've got numerous people in the mix, and like last season, a big story point of last season was they had so many different race winners, right?
Right.
And that's cool, but it was still,
how many of them were actually challenging?
Yeah. So, you want people to win races and have that be towards the championship, have that be towards being in it to the end of the season. And so having 3 drivers fighting for a championship, and with 67% of the season still left, you can't be much happier. Not to beat a dead horse, but I just want to reflect back on the one stop. Not only did Yuki Tsunoda do the one stop, but Nico Hülkenberg also did a one stop, finished P12. Shout out those two. I'm a Yuki fan. I want to see him succeed, and then I think Hülkenberg is a quality driver. So
absolutely.
So I just had to give them their shine for a moment.
On the topic of championships, though, Ferrari got a pretty hefty amount of points for them this Grand Prix weekend. After their very unfortunate exits in Q2, they ended up finishing what was that, fourth and sixth?
4th and 6, yeah.
So that's great points for them. They're catching Mercedes.
You sound really enthusiastic about this.
Catching Mercedes and Red Bull, kind of, and then they
So-
extended their gap from Williams. That's always
Well, yeah, they did because Sainz was P8, so now they are 27 points behind Red Bull and 63 points ahead of Williams, I believe.
Their aim is definitely to finish P3, I think, unless they could bring some baller upgrades in the next few races or during the summer break. I don't think P1 for them is going to be realistic.
Absolutely not. I don't think P1 is realistic for any team that's not McLaren. I think P2 is very much up for grabs. If Mercedes don't.
Ideally, the lowest they finish is 3. After finishing P2 last year,
yeah,
it would be kind of embarrassing to finish P4 the season after, especially with an arguably better, air quotes,
driver pairing.
Shout out Carlos.
Well, I mean, Carlos is rated higher on F1.
This is true.
2025, is that
this is
year?
true?
Yeah.
He is rated higher than Lewis. So,
yeah.
What do we know though?
But on the topic of Ferrari versus Williams, there was the late incident between Charles and Alex Albon.
Yep, the last 3 lap shenanigans.
Yeah, Albon trying to make an overtake on the outside of I forget which corner it was, but
he tried to do what Max did.
Yeah, exactly.
On Oscar in lap 1,
and
proved to not be successful.
It was very much an ambitious move.
Yes,
he was, the commentators were on the broadcast and they were literally reading the rule. And it was like Albon needed to have if Charles had his front wheel ahead of Alex's mirror, then he was not obligated to leave the car's width.
Right.
And Leclerc was very clearly ahead of the corner, tire ahead of the mirror, and he took the spot. He didn't leave the space for Alex. For Alex, it was either go off track like he did or back out of it. And, Albon immediately on the radio saying that's not fair. It's kind of, it's debatable. Debatable at best, but I think it was very, very odd of Ferrari to make Leclerc give that position up. Because just looking at some slow motion of it, some video.
Like looking at the replay earlier, we were both pretty confident that Albon was not making that corner.
Yeah,
ever.
Leclerc had was ahead by the proper amount, and he took the corner, and that's not something he should have to give up his position for. And to be fair to him, it wasn't the FIA; it was Ferrari.
Yeah, it was. He was under investigation for multiple laps, and at that point, if it's taking that long, that means the stewards are thinking about it, and you don't want them to give them time to think about it because the longer they think, the higher the chance that they might give you the penalty.
I wouldn't even say that because it was so far at the end of the race, and it's like it was like lap 60 that the incident happened, and then literally they made him give up the position on the last lap.
Yep. It's going into, like you said, it was the last lap. If they would have finished the race, Charles ahead of Alex, and then the stewards decided that Charles deserved a penalty, he's dropping the P9. If they swap positions, he just loses 1 spot. So I don't know if Ferrari was just didn't trust Charles doing the right thing.
They're just scared. They were too scared. It's like I don't know how as somebody as a Ferrari team member, as like a team principal or whatever, if you're Fred or, strategist or whoever makes those kind of calls, I don't know how you watch that back and you're like, oh, we have to give that back. Because if you're literally, it could just be they have no faith in the FIA in the race director.
I kind of think that might have.
And that's not unfounded. The FIA is not like we said, they're not immune to the occasional,
blunder
or putting their hand into something. But like, I don't know. In that if it were me in that situation and I'm watching that back, I'm literally like, he followed the rule. Like he's within his rights.
I think that's why Red Bull and Max are so successful sometimes with his more ambitious moves, because if there's potentially a gray area, like they're going to capitalize on that. And I think Ferrari just saw gray area and just panicked and didn't know if they would in fact get penalized or not. So it's that's on the team. It's not on Charles in any way.
No, I think Charles had every right to be as upset as he was, because it just, I don't know, I think it says a lot about how they have to race today, and they have to, like, it's not about being really quick. Like you have to be just so mindful of everything that's around you, and like even when you are super aware of what's going on, and you like try to take every step, and you're within the rules, but your team still has you give it up. It's pretty frustrating, like, because there is a super heavy emphasis on like no contact, can't touch, can't rub, and that's where F1 is so different from a lot of series, because like in other series, like little contact is okay, like it's as long as it's not like egregious.
F1 will allow a little tire tap if it's sidewall to sidewall every now and then, but
and I also think I think the F1 car is a bit more fragile.
It's more fragile.
And like
you could break the other person's car very easily.
Yeah, and then like once there's damage, like the car can become aerodynamically, like it can be
garbage.
Yeah,
trash can. So,
but like in like sports, like, I mean, the example that I think of is Supercross. The Supercross championship wrapped up recently, and there's been a lot of controversy with that, with Hayden Deegan, who won the 250 West championship. He was very, very contact heavy this season, and it was extremely divisive, because some people are like, that's not really racing, you're butting people off the track, and like there's a mix of scenarios, because there was times where like I was like, all right, that's kind of unnecessary, and then there's there's a move in Supercross and motocross where like when you're taking the inside of a turn and the other guy went wide, you can sort of tap their front tire with your back tire, and like it can kind of, you're not knocking them down, but you're sending them, kind of off path, off direction. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then there's situations where he was like full on, like shoulder to shoulder, like bodying people off track. And it's like, all right, come on now. Like, you ain't got to do all that. Yeah. So. But I digress. Moral of the story, they let them
have
touch,
faith.
Let them touch a little bit.
Yeah. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this episode off with our driver of the days. If I had to guess, we're probably both gonna say Yuki.
Well, see,
Maybe.
I wasn't even, it wasn't even on my radar until we were recording, because I didn't realize he did a one stop. And but like the P20 to P10 was already
impressive,
but then
on a one stop,
the one stop, I mean, no doubt the safety car helps him, the two safety cars help him a little bit, but still, like, that's a great recovery from him. I mean,
I mean, the only other person you could really say probably would be Max.
Yeah,
For the
first turn,
and then disappearing.
and then just being gone the rest of the race.
Just shout out Red Bull this week, honestly.
I need Yuki to have put in a really good qualifying session and
he needs that morale boost.
I want to see him fighting near the top for once.
I don't expect him to win, but I need to see him fight for podiums at least. So
I don't know if he'll do that this weekend because it is Monaco.
It is Monaco.
So I mean,
hey, he might put together a lap of the gods, qualify, put him on pole this week, and
I don't know.
He'll disappear and win. That's not.
You never know. You never know.
On that note, thank you for joining us again. Follow us on all of our socials. We want to hear from y'all if you agree, disagree, whatever, and we'll catch y'all next week after Monaco.